Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have a question for me that you'd like me to explore on the channel, you can send it to www.asksean.org, where you can do that anonymously. But in this video, I'm going to be exploring actually a question that was posed to me back in an interview in 2019. And so this is kind of exploring some things to do with flirting. What is the difference between healthy and unhealthy flirting? And I'm going to suggest that I think a lot of what we tend to think of as flirting in our culture has some yucky elements to it. A lot of it tends to be more about just trying to make ourselves feel good and kind of using one another in that process, or trying to possess or control one another. And so I'm going to suggest that I think a healthier form of flirting is really more rooted in a groundedness and a boundariedness that delights in the other out of our masculinity and femininity, but isn't about trying to take something or trying to use someone. So yeah, I think there's some interesting things to kind of ponder in this, and yeah, I hope that you'll find it helpful. So one of the things that sometimes comes up in our culture is trying to understand flirting and flirting behavior, and kind of, is there a healthy form of flirting versus an unhealthy form of flirting, and how do we tell the difference? And for some of this, actually, what I'm going to say, I want to give credit to Alain de Botton, who's an author who wrote the book, I think, The Course of Love, and he's written a number of other books. And so he's got some really interesting things to say around this topic that kind of helped refine some of my thinking. So one of the elements about of healthy flirting, I would say, is it's this kind of a taking delight in, kind of delighting in the other person, in the masculinity and femininity of the other person. And a contrast that I want to paint between healthy and unhealthy flirting is that I think an unhealthy flirting is going to be more driven by and kind of oriented around sort of what it can get, like what it can sort of, what it can take from the other person. So as opposed to sort of a delighting in the other person's presence and just the things that make them them and whatnot, and their masculine and feminine aspects. Kind of an unhealthy flirting is going to be more about like what can I get for me, and it's sort of less seeing the other person as a person and more just like, oh, you're something that makes me feel good, like heroin or this or that, and so that just has an underlying different kind of feel to it, and I was also going to be more inclined to land us in kind of not good relational decisions and whatnot, if that's kind of our bent, because then whether if like say if we're in a committed relationship, but our bent in terms of how we approach flirting is sort of this unhealthy element, then we're going to be probably less boundaried, less wise in terms of engaging in that, which then can certainly turn into kind of various kinds of trust-breaking behaviors. But one of the things that I think was really interesting and I thought insightful that Alain de Botton kind of talks about in terms of healthy flirting is this idea of, how would I put it, like that we can kind of honor and delight in another person's presence and in who they are, regardless of whether or not we or they are in a position where we would actually date or we would actually get involved in some kind of romantic way. And so I think, and so the thing I appreciate about this is that it takes flirting from something that we've tended to think of as being solely oriented around trying to acquire a partner, and it expands it into, I think, this really helpful and useful sort of broader category of just being able to appreciate the good things about our fellow human beings. And so, this allows us to have a category for, having, like having a friend who's married, for example, of the gender that we're attracted to, and being able to enjoy connection with them, but doing that in a boundaried way, like sort of the safety of like I'm not actually going to pursue this in an inappropriate way, but you're a really delightful person, and we're having a fun little connection and a fun little moment here. Now, obviously, that requires a certain degree of kind of healthiness and groundedness in oneself, to not sort of get carried away in that, to where you end up doing something that then becomes trust breaking, for between yourself and your own partner, or this person and their partner. But I think when we can have that kind of grounding and that kind of healthiness, there's this opportunity to just to really bless one another, to be able to enjoy each other's company in a way that's still boundaried, but also isn't like sort of like afraid of the other person's energy or masculinity or femininity, which I think there can be, because I think we can sort of fall off the fence on various extremes. Like we can have sort of like an overly sort of loose approach to partnerships, such that there's kind of no fences around it, which in my experience tends to end up with broken trust and people feeling pretty hurt, and just sort of like a kind of an indiscriminate kind of element. But we can also sort of kind of like be a little bit siloed, where like the couple isn't able to sort of like have interactions with very well, or very rich interactions with people outside of the dyad. And I think that's problematic as well, because the reality is that the couple dyad can't be our end-all be-all. So, certainly it's a little bit, it can be a little bit messy in terms of like sort of navigating a healthy flirting. But again, I think if we're coming from a place of our posture is to bless and to delight in one another, as opposed to sort of that more unhealthy element of like kind of what can I get out of this? How can I make myself feel better? How can I like sort of feed the insecure parts of me? I think there's a lot of good that can happen and sort of in that healthy category. I think the unhealthy form of flirting, which is probably the more common in our culture, is probably more actually what we tend to think of when we think of flirting. Is this sort of like this behavior of what's going to make me feel good, and what's going to sort of reel somebody in, male or female, like that. I don't think that's a good dynamic for us. Even if we're single and like that's how we're going about trying to get a partner, like that's not a great starting point, because we're already being driven by like sort of an unhealthy kind of relationship with our needful parts. It's okay to have needful parts. We all have needs and whatnot, and we all can have even a bit of neediness to us. But we need to learn how to like own that and work with that in a way where that's not like where we're not going around like a vampire trying to suck the life out of people, but where we're kind of seeking to care for those parts of us, and such that we can actually try to see other people as people, and like, hey, you're really cool, like I would like to spend more time with you, like that's nothing wrong with that, nothing unhealthy about that. But there's a difference between that and like I'm not able to feel okay about myself in and of myself, and like, but I kind of feel better with you, so like, what do I need to do to make this happen, to try to like, keep my own sort of unresolved scary stuff at bay. Like that's just not a good setup for a relationship. And then certainly if you're in a relationship and then you're engaging with other people, I mean, it's just all you can imagine all the ways that's going to go south. It's going to end up negatively. And so again, it's just that's where we have to do our own work, so that we can have enough grounding to be able to move about in the world where we can enjoy one another's presence, whether that's whether that's something that turns into a partner relationship, or whether we're already in a partner relationship, but we're able to bless and be blessed by other people whom we can experience attraction with, but also kind of being able to do that within healthy boundaries.